What's up, comic and pop culture fans? Not that anybody asked, but I'm going to give you my ideas on how to reboot the DC movie universe. After all, I think about this all the time anyway. Might as well get my thoughts down for you. Because we've had the MCU so recently, you can kind of see what worked, kind of what didn't work. First thing you have to do is you have to completely ignore all projects, all universes, all previous actors, no matter how well you think that casting was. If you're doing a fresh slate, you gotta do a fresh, clean slate. All new actors, all new storylines, all one shared universe. Sorry, Gal Gadot. Sorry, Henry Cavill. It is honestly more confusing to try to make these tie-ins without doing cheap writing hacks like bringing in the multiverse, which I want that to stay away as long as possible. Okay, so you're going to start it with Superman. Much like what we know is happening with the James Gunn reboot, it is pretty much starting with Superman. So you don't gamble with characters like Blue Devil or Phantom Stranger getting their movie. You stick to the basics. You gotta do them, and you gotta do them right. And you're gonna start with the most important one, Superman. And you gotta get it to be almost as good, if not better, than the original Christopher Reeve Superman, which so far I've yet to see an iteration that I think has passed it. So it needs to go for it. Here's what this Superman has to be. Kind and compassionate, full of hope, unrelentingly, a much brighter iteration than what we have seen, and he's got to be truth, justice, and the American way. A lot of superhero media right now has done that sort of satire approach to displaying nationalism with a negative light. I think Superman needs to be this beacon of American hope, much like how he was in like the 50s and 60s. It's got to feel fresh and it's got to feel American. I think that's one element of Superman that's absolutely essential. Okay, next, Earth should already have plenty of protectors. I genuinely believe the Justice Society of America should already exist. Superman shouldn't be, in this reboot, the first timer. We've already had protectors for decades. For example, there should always at all times be at least one Green Lantern of Earth. So, if you don't want to introduce Hal Jordan yet, that's fine, but you gotta have Abin Sur being an active member of protecting Earth. After all, he is the first protector of Earth, predating Hal Jordan. And maybe Abin Sur is even boys with the Justice Society of America. I don't know, you could get creative with it. I also believe heavily that Wonder Woman should predate Superman in this universe as well. We gotta talk about Batman. Sorry to Pattinson. I love Matt Reeves. I think that a lot of that movie worked. I think a lot of the Penguin worked. But I do believe this universe needs to be completely separate. Sorry. In the perfect DCU, I'd already have an existing Batman who even has a Robin at this point, both of whom are skeptical of Superman, but eventually befriends him as Bruce learns that he is the true hope that the world needs. That's comic accurate. That's Superman. That's Batman. That's even Robin. I would want a high-budget HBO show, Batman animated series style, that's very character-driven. It could even go back and do the year 1, year 2, year 3 stuff and really give us that early Batman. But in this universe, I want Batman to be established. Most of his rogues gallery even already exists at this point. It even touches on the fact that Batman and the Joker have this forever back and forth cat and mouse thing going on. I want each episode to have a significantly different feel, and much like some shows like Black Mirror, I would want different directors for each episode. Next, we got to talk about Flash. So we would need a way bigger role for Flash. I feel like with the Snyder stuff, he was introduced last minute. He was kind of almost like a throw-in. And comic fans know he's as important as Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Superman. I also want, just like Batman, for the Flash to have an already fully formed rogues gallery. Batman and Flash have some of the best villains, not only just in DC, but fiction in general. So a lot of that we really need to have good iterations of. And I'm not talking about crappy CGI CW versions. I mean the real deal I also want this Flash to have a good working relationship with Bruce, just like in the comics. Bruce is wary of a lot of people, but he loves Robin, he loves Mr. Terrific, he loves Barry Allen, and he comes around to Superman. There are some characters that I need to take a back seat for a second. Aquaman, most notably, because we just had 2 movies that actually did quite well in the box office. We want this new world to be so separate from what just happened. So I actually would want Aquaman to be relegated to cameos for the time being. Down the line, he can have a much more active role, especially when they later form the Justice League. But a lot of tie-ins with the Amazons and Themyscira, you can have him be brought in then. But I think he should be one of these characters that's long existing, but in the background, not to confuse people with, obviously, Jason Momoa, who, on that topic, Jason Momoa should 1000% portray Lobo, but that character can be introduced a little later on. Let's get the basics done for now. I also think Cyborg and certain members of the Teen Titans have been done quite a lot, so they actually need to take a little bit of a backseat in my world and slowly incorporate it into this bigger, broader spotlight here. Overall, there needs to be a much bigger focus on TV, not just movies. Keep the big blockbusters for your major superheroes like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, maybe Green Lantern, Justice League, etc. Don't give the huge movies to a Blue Beetle. I'm sorry. Not yet. I think people are getting a little bit tired of it all, and I think they want to do some pick and choose. And these TV show formats is the way to do that. But I'm talking Game of Thrones scale. I mean, go all the way. This is your opportunity to show that you have something the MCU doesn't, which is high quality, super high budget shows that are extremely character driven, very well thought out, and I need that budget pushed. We need to have perfect CGI. This is a chance to show, look how much better DC's budget is CGI-wise than Marvel's. Marvel's CGI has gotten a lot of complaints in the last 6, 7, 8 years. DC needs to step up and never run into that issue. Take advantage of that clean slate. Next is to hold off on the cosmic and hold off on the multiverse. Now, if you're going to introduce Green Lanterns, that's your gateway into the cosmic. But for the start, I want to see Green Lantern stories on Earth. I want it to be grounded. We could even have, again, Abin Sur on Earth, or you can have some Hal stuff. You can even start to introduce other Green Lanterns, but keep it on Earth for a bit here. Don't freak people out just yet. It gets crazy with DC Comics, but don't go there just immediately. Before we see Oa, Quard, Thanagar, we need to be on Earth. Those of you that don't know, the multiverse in DC Comics is also very different. It has a completely different laws and sets of rules than the MCU does. And it's really cool, and I don't want it to be ruined. So because public consensus right now is the multiverse is a little too much, hold on the multiverse. You can introduce it later because I prefer DC's multiverse, and it needs to be done right. I do think major villains should be Lex Luthor, Maxwell Lord, Deathstroke, and Grodd. Yes, I'm extremely specific about this. And of course, Joker. I believe in the grounded villains to start, but also villains that pose not just a threat to Batman or Superman, but that pose a threat to other members as well, but aren't like putting giant holes in the sky and world-ending stuff here. I think they need to be careful with Darkseid. We, after all, did just get a Darkseid portrayal in Snyder's cut, but we also need to watch out because Thanos with the MCU was a success, but it's just too similar. So I think they need to avoid that whole thing altogether and stick with more grounded, earth-bound issues and villains like Lex Luthor. You can do Brainiac way down the line in like DCU's Phase 5. You can do that world threat. But for right now, don't do it something that's too similar to Thanos. Don't forget that DC villains work great on a psychological level, which means most DC villains are not one-time villains. They leave lasting impacts and legacies on these characters that will change them forever. The feel of this new DCU should be grounded at the start, yet with fantastical elements, and it should feel lighthearted, which later evolves over the next decade into the more absurd, huge crisis scale, and also much darker. DC is known for being dark, but I think you don't want to introduce that right now. That way it feels more serious and consequential when the rug gets pulled out from under these characters later on once we've come to love them. Superman, however, should stay a beacon of hope and lightheartedness throughout it all. I think that is crucial. And last thing I'm going to do here is death should very much be on the table. Please do not pull a Civil War MCU style and have no real consequences and no real deaths. There should be characters dying, much like Ted Kord getting a bullet in the comics. No one is safe in this DC universe. Also, speaking of death, please don't redo the Superman death storyline. We just got an iteration of that. We don't need to see it again. There's lots more you can do without just rehashing. I do think if you're going to have a cheating death thing, you can do it maybe once. That whole cheap writing, just bring people back, it happens in the comics, but I think that doesn't really fly for the movies. So try to not do that so much. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone's handing me billions and billions and billions of dollars. However, I think about a perfect DC mapped out world on a regular basis. So here's just some of my thoughts for you. What would you like to see in the new James Gunn DCU? Drop it in the comments down below and keep on hunting. Make sure to come on down to Sentiment Depot's Antiques and Collectibles, located at 238 West Delaware Ave in Pennington, New Jersey. Find so many great books for just $1 and the lowest prices on key comics around. Enjoy a huge selection of graded comics priced up to 20% lower than current fair market value. We are open from Wednesday to Sunday, closed Monday, Tuesday. You got a collection you want to sell? Bring that too. Can't wait to see you there.